Welcome to the MTD Podcast, another in a mini-series of the MTD Podcast Special Episodes. And this one's all about live events. Today I'm joined by my two good friends, the founder of MTDCNC, Mr. Paul Jones, and Mr. Will Watson, the marketing manager at MTDCNC. Now, things have significantly changed over the last few months. It's been challenging times for us all, but it's made us adapt. It's made us diversify. It's made us change. Now, the podcast today is about live events. Paul, tell our listeners, watchers in this particular scenario, what are we doing in regards to live events?
The live events is an extension of our video media service, something we've been practicing a long time, but it's really coming to the forefront now. A live event offers you instantaneous results. People will ask questions, we will answer them. It's broadcast across several platforms at once. It's probably, as it stands, and I think going forward for the next, however long, the most powerful route to market.
Why, Paul? Why? That's a big statement to make. Why would that be the most powerful route to market?
I think a few reasons. I'm a big fan of an exhibition. Okay, I'm a big fan of an exhibition. I love traveling the world. In fact, we start traveling the world again soon to go to exhibitions. However, since exhibitions have obviously gone through troublesome times and probably will for another few months or so, or maybe a little bit longer, people need to get information about machinery very, very quickly, about tooling solutions quickly, and they want to do it, if they can't travel, sitting behind their desk or on their phone. Live events with MTD, they're planned, they're scheduled. They'll know 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before, maybe even longer before when it's going to happen. There'll be a build-up, so they'll know what they can expect to see during that live event. And then they'll have the options during that live event to ask questions and get those questions answered. Now, okay, there's this big thing at the moment about virtual exhibitions and virtual shows. We've been round the houses with these, and Will support me on this for months, even before COVID. Should we do a virtual show? Should we do a virtual exhibition? From selling machines in my history and through talking to other machinery suppliers, we know that those guys want people to their showrooms, the same as cutting tool guys, the same as machine accessories, solution providers, automation providers. They want people in their workshops touching and feeling their inventory. You can't do that via a virtual show. Whatever anybody says, if I was selling those, I believe, laptops, software, virtual shows every day of the week. But you can't tell me that I mean, I don't mean that in a bad... It just, I feel quite... I'm not saying we'll never do it. Things would need to change dramatically. The software would need to get better. The responses would need to get better. To me, you weigh that up against live events.
I think it's a very technical product, and I think it's very difficult to buy a very technical product that you're buying to solve a solution in a live event without, ultimately at one point during the selling process, you'll have to go to that showroom to have a look at the product. You're not going to just, what do you think about it, Will? And also live events, Will, tell us what it actually entails, because there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes in a live event.
Yeah, there's quite a lot that goes into it production-wise. There's all the planning in the build-up to the event. We've obviously got the promotion in the build-up to the event as well. While we're there, we'll have multiple camera guys getting multiple different angles. There'll be the technical side of it, the actual broadcasting side of it, and the audio. So quite a lot. Presenters, I mean, these guys have got the hardest job.
I don't know, I mean, when I look at what goes into it, the last event we did at Star, I remember that we took a team of 8 to 10 people there. You've got to consider internet connections. You've got to consider communication between cameras and all the rest of it. I mean, it's sleepless night job the night before, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's stressful.
Well, I think you've done an absolutely fantastic job. We've done a few now, but I've got some figures down here, Paul.
But I'd just be interested, when you compare that to a virtual event, when you look at some of the things you're procuring for the office, would you use a virtual show? Would you rather watch a live feed? Because I know we're not talking about virtual shows, but there is this comparative there.
Yeah. For me personally, I live on the internet. It's my job, and even when I go home, I'm on the internet. Walking around a virtual showroom using your internet browser is not great. I'd much rather sit in front of a screen, somebody's walking around with a camera and feeding that information to me. I don't want to be going around a clunky bit of software and stuff. It's a bit old hat, and that might annoy.
But surely the key of live events over virtual is that interaction. So an end user could be watching the live event from his home, from his office, from wherever in the world effectively. It's live streamed, and he can actually ask any question there and then. He could even ask the people that are being interviewed to do a demo, to change an offset, to show the strokes of the machine tool, to ask any question he wants. That you can't do that in a virtual event, can you?
No, exactly. And I mean, I think what we've got to be careful of here is I don't want to sort of try and make these comparisons. I think it's my own fault for bringing it up. But I think when you look at live events and you take them as their own product, I think for us it's definitely the next step. I mean, we've got a lot of exhibitions that are coming up and coming, not just in the UK, around the world, where at the moment they're kind of, will they, won't they happen? If they do, am I going to get good enough footfall? If they do happen, but I don't get good enough footfall, can I add a little bit of a live element into there in order to improve the audience that's coming? So there are all of these factors, and I think for me, having looked at the live events that we've done, we've got a big one just around the corner as well. It's a challenge. Don't get me wrong. It's a challenge to get it all set up, as Will said. You know, that the amount of work that goes into it, the team of people you need there to execute it, the presenters that need to be on the money to ask the questions, the correct questions, but not only that, the customers that need to have the right sales and applications team on the other end to be able to answer incoming questions, because that's what it's about. You're essentially taking a guy out of a machine shop and putting him onto the shop floor next to the salesman and yourself. That's really what you're doing, because he can ask any question and expect to get it answered. And so I suppose the word in live is, it is the next best thing to get in someone at the showroom.
Sorry, the thing you've got to remember as well about the live events that we're doing, after that event's finished, that content is there, it's forever, essentially. When an exhibition closes its doors, that's it, it's done until 2 years later when there's the next one. So there's benefits of that discoverability after the event as well. Yeah.
What really stands out for me, I was fortunate enough to participate in 2 live events that we've done already. One, the Vulcan range launch at ETG, and the second at Star. Now, in the past, I used to do every single exhibition going, whether that be an open house, whether that be Mac, whether that be Southern Manufacturing. I was there. Now, the footfall is unpredictable, and the leads that you can potentially get are also unpredictable on the day. The figures that we got on them 2 live events were unprecedented, weren't they, Paul? I mean, not only the people that viewed it, but the questions that got asked, and God knows the amount of inquiries that they got following the live event. This is, when you look at if you had to look up and weigh up return of investments, this, I do agree, it's you're onto something there.
Well, you don't know how much they cost. No, but you're 100% right. I remember sitting with Will and his team and seeing the questions come through, but then those questions have got to be then reproduced and republished, haven't they, through whatever channels you use, communicated to the presenter, then they ask them, and then the answer comes back. It's then I mean, all that side is the clever bit, but it is, I think, as a return on investment, as a measure, just to give you some statistics, and I'm sure Will might have 1 or 2 more that he could throw in, but the Star show, we saw about 2,000 watches, about 300 questions, and suggestions for a cycle time challenge. That's 300. I mean, that's unbelievable over a period of time. How many open houses happen where a salesman gets 300 questions about a product?
But these can work in harmony with open houses, can't they? They can be an extension of an open house effectively. So, we mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, everyone's having to adapt, everyone's having to change due to unforeseen circumstances in these challenging times. But for the better in some ways, digital technology is now available to us, and we're using this in a sales way that's never really been done before in our industry, Paul. And it's, effectively you could have thousands of people within that showroom instead of 100, because you've got another 2,000 that are there remotely. It's brilliant.
Yeah. And I think when we look at some of those figures, well, I was right in those, wasn't I, roughly? And didn't we have a lot of people sitting there waiting to watch as well?
Yeah, we did, yeah. It was quite surprising, even for me. Like, obviously, we put all this work in before the show, and then you see the numbers, like, sort of totaling up before the stream starts, and you just think this is.
You get this mess. You got 250 ready to go, waiting to hear what you got. And then there was one you have mishaps. We had a problem with sound. I mean, these things happen, but it's the rectification of those issues as well. Not easy to do, but live events definitely MTD the place to come to now.
Paul, MTD are diversifying and changing with the times, lots of new things happening. For people that have listened or even watched this particular special episode podcast and may have an interest in a live event, how should they get in touch?
They should contact us at inquiries at MTDCNC.com, visit the website, and then the guys here, you can talk to myself or any of the account managers, and we can come back to the team here, Will and his team, and put something together as a package to produce something live. Is this one live?
It's kind of live. It's certainly exciting times, and thank you very much, guys. Loved it. Brilliant stuff.
Thank you, Jay. Will.
Thanks for listening to the MTD podcast. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. Find more episodes on MTDCNC.com.